Our heroine, Rinko Nakama, was gushing over her favorite shows. At 24 years old, some might ask why she still acted like this, but she worked hard to earn this otaku sanctuary after moving out. As long as she was surrounded by her favorite anime and books, she could nullify any debuffs. With this healing space, she was invincible. Oh no, she's a nerd. That's like everyone on my channel. There was one problem though. The Usaneka Club was her favorite anime. So is this like a Chikawa or Hello Kitty equivalent? That's the only thing I can really think of. That continuous banging on the wall wouldn't let her watch any other anime, and it only stopped as long as she watched Usaneko Club. The neighbor to her right, Usada, was quite the mystery. Rinko hadn't seen their face yet. When she made everyday noises or watched dramas, she didn't get any reactions, but they were very strict about her watching anime, except for Usaneko Club. Rinko wondered if they just liked the same show as her. That would make them kindred spirits, but she feared they'd never see eye to eye. Heading out the next morning, Rinko looked sad, wondering if Usaneko Club didn't soothe her neighbor's souls. She'd receive a warm greeting from her other neighbor, Akito Satsuki, but she'd greet him with a gloomy expression before leaving. She was unable to absorb enough of her shows last night. However, once she got home and watched anime, she'd be alright. Idol Samurai was reserved for tonight. At the office, Rinko sped through the heap of work she had for the day. Eventually, she was burnt out. So, she went to get a cup of coffee to re-energize. Thinking about how rude she was to Akito, she decided to apologize when she got home. Akito was always nice, a super duper kind person. So kind that she could mistake him for a grandma who had a grandchild her age. He was the ultimate refreshing gentleman. Mustering up the strength for the final push, Rinko left to complete her remaining work. By nighttime, she was finally done. Or so she thought. Her manager would walk in, complimenting how much of a hard worker she was, and for that, dumped more paperwork for her. Poor girl. By the time Rinko got home, she was at her limit. Just tonight, she prayed to be spared to enjoy her show. Sadly, as Idol Samurai came on, the wall banging started. Slumping to the ground, despair took over her. Just then, her doorbell rang, and she feared her neighbor had come to confront her, but it turned out to be Akito. He came to give her some extra tea he got from a friend. Thanking him, Rinko slowly broke down into tears. She asked why he was so much like a grandma. Then, she told him her troubles with the wall banging that prevented her from watching anime. This was unacceptable. Akito would go confront the neighbor by pretending to be Rinko's boyfriend. Boyfriend? Oh, you trying to sneak that in? I see what he's doing. Come on. But when he rang the doorbell, there was no response. He then asked Rinko if he could come into her place. Of course, he promised not to do anything weird. She wasn't worried about that, but about the fact that her room was a disorderly danger zone full of evil spirits. While she was flustered, Akito asked, "Are you an otaku?" It turns out, he was the same, and there was nothing for her to be so scared about. Getting into her room, Rinko showed how the neighbor would slam the wall for any anime besides Usaneko Club. Akito began slamming back, as if communicating with him. He wanted to resolve this peacefully, but the other neighbor ended up banging the wall even more aggressively. When Akito called him a Neanderthal, Haruma Usada slammed a hole through the wall in fury. Oh! What is happening? He just broke through the wall? Akito decided to call the police, but Rinko quickly stopped him. Surprisingly, Haruma was the author of Usaneko Club. To Rinko, he was a god, a national treasure of a creator. She was a huge fan. Haruma knew how much she fanned over him, thanks to the thin walls. Akito was still insistent on calling the police, but Rinko begged him not to. She claimed people would be devastated if Haruma got arrested. It'd be a huge loss to the world if something were to happen to him. His works were humanity's treasure, the second sun that shed light upon this planet. Whatever the hell all that meant, Akito still didn't care. The main reason Haruma was slamming the wall was that he didn't want a fan of his watching any other anime, especially when he was slaving over a manuscript. Before leaving, Akito was still concerned about leaving things as they were. However, knowing Haruma was the one banging on her wall, Rinko felt it was advantageous for a disciple like her. At that moment, she could feel Akito's cold aura freezing her up. He told her the art had to be kept separate from the artist. Oh, he jealous. You know he's jealous. I think keeping art separate from the artist is a good idea. Ye made some of the greatest classics, but occasionally gets unhinged. And Billie Eilish is an annoying virtue signaling who's always going, "Eat the rich." Girl, you the rich, I'd eat you too. Then again, the issue was solved, all thanks to him. Living between both of them, Rinko felt like she won the best neighbor lottery. Nevertheless, Akito asked her to call if she felt like she was in danger. The next morning, she was startled, waking up to Haruma in her bed.
Yo? Hey, yo?
Akito came running to help once she heard her scream, but she told him it was alright. On the other hand, Haruma asked if she had any food. He'd been working for days without eating. It was the weekend, so she didn't have much, but she couldn't ignore that loud, growling belly. So, Rinko quickly entered the kitchen to prepare a meal. Once she was done, food was served, and Haruma began eating. Seeing her god eating in her otaku sanctuary made her flush. In minutes, he was done with the whole food. Turning to Rinko, he told her how delicious it was. He even asked for more. Seeing the way he was bossing Rinko around, Akito said it was typical of men who committed domestic violence. Even though he didn't look it, Haruma was really grateful. When working, he could never really eat decent food. Rinko figured he lived a hard life. And yet, here she was, defenselessly watching shows made by other creators. She was an unworthy disciple. She wanted to be of assistance, offering to do anything. This was the same guy who broke down her wall. But she didn't care. He was the author of Usaneka Club after all. Akito feared she wouldn't be able to watch anything else if she allowed Haruma to oppress her. In that case, she opted to wear headphones and stay as far away from the wall as possible. While they were talking, Haruma had fallen asleep on the table. Rinko wanted to let him rest, so Akito invited her over to his place. He usually recorded every channel, so he definitely had the anime she loved watching. Thanks to the strange turn of events, Rinko was in a man's private space for the first time. Akito's space was much bigger and very organized. She'd been wondering about Rinko's crisis management skills. Once again, she could feel a violent blizzard emanating from him. He told her to be more careful. She promised not to follow strangers. Plus, she had great trust in his grandma skills. Shortly after, he'd join her on the couch to watch TV. They were so close, it made her flustered. There were other places for him to sit, so she wondered why he was this close. She felt so embarrassed. It was so distracting that she couldn't focus on the 2D world. Seeing how she was freaking out, Akito started laughing. He'd only been teasing. Hearing that made her even more flush. He failed as a grandma. But he told her he was no grandma, rather, a big bad wolf. That's when Haruma broke through the wall. Seriously? This guy doesn't know what a door is? He was furious at the two of them for watching an anime that wasn't his. Aside from that, he wanted Rinko to feed him every day. She didn't think her food was that special. On the other hand, he loved it. He just had a dream about it, and his brain was filled with thoughts of her home-cooked meals. He promised to pay for her labor and food for 3 people. Referring to Akito as her boyfriend, Haruma felt he'd be angry if only he and Rinko ate together. Rinko was going along with it before she realized who he was calling her boyfriend. Akito, on the other hand, happily played along, placing his hand on her shoulder. She didn't think he'd still be acting as her boyfriend after that night. However, Haruma didn't want just meals. He dragged them in to play games as well. He was definitely lonely. Either way, he claimed it was the chef's assistant's duty to amplify their mangaka's lifestyle. Akito then asked Rinko if this was what she wanted to do, and whatever his girlfriend wanted to do, he'd do his best to support as a boyfriend. And that was how a god, his disciple, and his disciple's pretend boyfriend began living together under unusual circumstances, at least until the walls were patched up. By liking the video and subscribing to my channel, because here on my Shoujo Weekly, you and me have a creator and viewer relationship. And my XP bar is low, but you can level up our affinity with your subscription. Already subscribed? Well, I love you, and I'd love you more if you watched all my videos on the channel to make me money. Oh wow, it's kind of like we're spending time together as good friends. So come on, hit that subscribe and I'll be your guy, platonically. One day, in middle school, while Rinko was reading one of her books, some girls came over, teasing her about it. Feeling embarrassed, she told them she wasn't still watching those kinds of things. After all, it'd be weird. With them feeling bad for her, the girls told her it was alright, and they didn't judge her. After school, Rinko would head over to a bookstore. There, she came across a book known as Yorn's Tale. The story followed a girl who came across a man absorbed in picture books, despite his age. However, she thought it was actually nice. The man didn't see these picture books as childish distractions. Rather, they were like a bridge between children and adults. Yet, he was ashamed of them. Reading the book, Rinko was moved to tears. and she bought it. Just like the man in the book, the people she met, who only existed in fiction, was why she was never lonely. Yorn's Tale was a debut series by the children's book author. It was very popular, and to this day, still ongoing. It got Rinko through tough times in middle school, and still did now. Time and time again, she dreamt of Yorn. She believed the story left a precious impression deep within her heart. If she told this to Haruma, he'd be furious without a doubt. Regardless, it was a fundamental and important part of her, a precious series that was untouchable by everything else. Then, she'd hear Haruma ring a bell, signaling he wanted food, so Rinko quickly got to it. Later, she'd find herself walking hand in hand with Akito. However this came to be, she was clueless. Plus, Haruma wasn't even here. As he said, it was all a pretend act. Any reason it'd be beneficial for her to pretend she lived next door to her boyfriend. On their way home, he'd take her hand again, saying it was part of his pretend boyfriend duties. Returning home, she rang the bell, letting Haruma know they were back from shopping. After checking the receipt, he let her know she passed the beginner's test. Out of nowhere, he asked if she received a kiss on her way back. Stepping into the room, Akito would interrupt, saying it was left to his imagination. But Rinko was already flustered, thinking about how holding hands was such a big deal. Akito pointed out her bright red cheeks, and she said it was because she was cold. He teased that they'd share a scarf next time, but that only made her blush more. Haruma would stop them from all the flirting, calling them a crazy couple. Then, he told Rinko he was hungry. While peeling potatoes, she wondered if Haruma really saw both her and Akito as a crazy couple. When Akito told her to pretend she had a boyfriend, she panicked. All her past boyfriends had dialogue options. She had only dated men with visible parameters that she could monitor. In other words, she never had one in real life. Because of that, she felt it was unnatural, and her cover would be blown sooner or later. Akito questioned if it was really that unnatural for them to be dating. Of course, she felt it was unimaginable. On the other hand, he could imagine it, especially how they'd fall for each other. He suggested they come up with scenarios. Although she hated his teasing, she couldn't say no to that charming smile. Shortly after, Rinko accidentally stained her white shirt, so she took it off. The next second, she found Haruma's eyes glaring at her through the darkness. He'd tell her, "You're tempting me." And at that moment, she screamed. Akito immediately rushed in, and seeing both of them, you could tell what he thought of the situation. However, Haruma's actual temptation was the curry Rinko was cooking. Following that, they sat around the table for dinner. As always, Haruma acknowledged Rinko's delicious cooking. Akito would go, "That's my girlfriend for you." He wished she'd make homemade curry only for him. Regardless, Haruma didn't care about any of that. Suddenly, some of Rinko's plushies and action figures fell out of the cupboard. She thought Haruma would be upset if he saw them. Akito told her she didn't need to go that far. She shouldn't have to change things she liked that easily. Haruma also let her know she was free to do what she wanted. He wasn't the kind of guy who was bothered by stuff like that. He proposed they eat at his place from now on, and Akito invited Rinko to use his kitchen. They both had bigger apartments. To their surprise, Haruma revealed his dad owned the building. No wonder he didn't care when he broke down the walls. Apparently, he and the last tenant in Akito's room had adjusted both their walls. That was why Rinko's place was so small. Haruma then asked if they thought their fortune had changed. Many creatives had blossomed here at Spring Heights. Mangakas, novelists, and musicians, even renowned film directors in this day and age, came from this very building. Lots of people came here after hearing the stories. Rinko thought it was amazing. Usuneko Club, the current reigning mega popular series, which was a source of comfort for the people, had an anime and its merch flew off the shelves. But she felt the true essence of the manga was Haruma's story writing. That friendly taste that poured out from the mundane daily life in his heartwarmingly fun worlds. When she finished reading it, she felt so warm and fuzzy inside. She could forget about her daily struggles and worries. His works were the ultimate comfort, despite all her rambling. She apologized for lacking the proper vocabulary to perfectly encapsulate the appeal of his work. Hearing all those words made Haruma flush. And while Rinko felt all warm and fuzzy, Akito's blizzard would blow that away. Bro's totally jealous. Haruma would then ask the two of them if they were creators. Rinko's true job was supporting her favorite works. As for Akito, he was a creator. Borrowing a pen and paper, he'd draw a pretty weird looking image. Without a doubt, he wasn't a mangaka. Curious, Haruma asked Rinko what her boyfriend was. To save herself, she'd turn it into a quiz. With Haruma unable to get the answer, they'd move on to post-game meals. While cleaning up, Rinko thought about how it was difficult to understand Yorn. He was full of mystery, fickle, pure, and a bit malicious. A trickster whose true intentions were never revealed through his words. Even so, he was hard to dislike. The people he encountered couldn't help but be drawn to him. His words were sharp, slicing through people like a weapon. They cut through masks of lies. Those exposed through his actions faced the truth for the first time in that very moment. Yorn wrote a letter to the prince. Regardless of whether what he wrote was true or not, the prince had no other choice but to believe him. Nevertheless, one thing could be said. The prince always looked forward to letters from Yorn. He also loved Yorn for setting off on adventures in his stead. And so, Yorn's journey continued. In the apartment where people were known to make it big, we meet Kyo Honda, a 23-year-old newbie mangaka. He was rooming with his friends who were fellow newbie mangakas, and they were all aiming to make it big. Hazuki Takamine was a handsome guy and an expert on women's feelings, but he liked dogs more than girls. Shion Kogi, the youngest of them, was a cross-dressing, boisterous young man with a healthy appetite. The three of them won a manga award for their first ever co-created story, and that rocketed them into the industry. However, things were only good up until that point. Over at Rinko's apartment, she was making breakfast, while Akito and Haruma kept an eye on her. She was yet to find out what Akito's job was, and he wouldn't tell her. Back then, at his apartment, Akito could see the curiosity written all over her face. She told him he didn't have to say if he didn't want to, and he didn't want to share yet, so she could understand that. She felt like he was setting a boundary, like he was hinting that he didn't want her getting any closer to him. So, she felt a bit left out. Then again, they were supposed to keep the distance. Akito was a super nice neighbor, and she wasn't supposed to pry. When Rinko turned around, she was shocked to see the mountains of pancakes she had made. Hazuki then got a text from her, letting her know she had made too many. Shion was really excited. On the other hand, Kyo questioned if they deserved this when they hadn't been able to make it big yet. Shion told them that the act of eating food made in excess was a universal human right. Plus, Rinko really needed the help. Then, their doorbell rang. Before they knew it, their table was filled with countless pancakes. Despite thinking that accepting the food was spineless, Kyo still stuffed his face. The first bite was so tasty, and he complimented Rinko's cooking. He loved how she was taking care of them. One day, while Kyo soaked in the rain, sulking because his manuscripts kept getting rejected, Rinko would come over with an umbrella to help him. Because of that, he was eager to escape this abominable hell of repeated rejections, so that he might share some good news with her. The next day, Rinko went out to get groceries. After making so much food, she was out of ingredients. However, Akito could tell those ingredients weren't for Haruma. He'd help her carry them, refusing to pry any further. Unknown to them, Kyo was watching from behind. Given how Rinko and Akito looked, he was certain they were leaving together. Back at the apartment, he broke the news to Hazuki and Shion. They still couldn't say for sure if Akito was Rinko's boyfriend, but then again, there was no way a stranger would carry half of someone's groceries and put an arm around them. This was the kind of stuff missing from Kyo's manuscripts, a balance of fiction and reality. In other words, their manga needs to be more compelling. It wasn't really love, but Kyo just wanted Rinko to acknowledge him. After some hours of writing, the three of them were all crying, reading the end of their story. It was the birth of a historical masterpiece. With this, they were certain to make it big. By the next day, they received another rejection. All that sleep deprivation might have gotten to their heads. Reading the story now, they realized it was pretty boring. Looking over it again, Kyo pointed out they didn't put enough thought into the plot progression and panel layouts. There wasn't a single character they could empathize with until page 6. So they needed to start the story from that page. Then, they could flesh out the side characters by replacing the old pages. As the ideas kept flowing in, they got their motivation back. In the early hours of the morning, while Rinko was dozing off, Haruma showed up next to her, pointing out that she was drooling. She was still half asleep. Then, he explained he was here because he wanted to find out the answer to the quiz from before. It was driving him nuts, and he couldn't focus on work. But she didn't know either. Akito never told her, and she barely knew anything about him. That made her really sad. Haruma wondered if things were rocky between them, but he assured her that she'd be fine. His curiosity was very much alive though. He decided to sneak in Akito's apartment and find out the answers himself. As they snuck in, Rinko reminded him that this was a crime, but Haruma responded that Akito could also be a criminal, maybe even an assassin. Finding one of the doors locked, he assumed someone was locked inside. He'd even go further, saying Akito was an assassin specializing in revenge assignments, and he went by the code name S. All the manga writing was clearly making him crazy. Haruma also believed Akito's current client was a father whose child was murdered. Wanting the killer to suffer the same pain, he imprisoned the target's child. Rinko was impressed with how he came up with all that so fast. Haruma stormed into the room, shocked to find no one. The room was instead filled with slasher movies, zombie flicks, psychological horror, and splatter films. Most of the titles were heavy on gore. It turns out Akito's secret hobbies were horror-related. Suddenly, Rinko sensed a cold chill as Akito caught them red-handed. She immediately apologized for going into his house without permission. He couldn't blame her, knowing this was all Haruma's plan. Haruma would then collect the snacks he asked him to buy, also hinting at Akito making Rinko cry, revealing she was sniveling about how sad she was. Akito then told her to come to him if something happened, and not to Haruma. However, Haruma called him out for being a selfish boyfriend, letting him know that he needed to talk to Rinko more about himself. Akito apologized to her. He hadn't told her about his hobbies because he was scared she might be put off by it. It wasn't that he was embarrassed about his interests, but if the person he liked disapproved of the things he enjoyed, he'd feel so hurt. Rinko completely understood him. After all, she was a closet otaku, no matter what anyone said. She just wanted to shout to the world how much she loved all her favorite things, but she ended up holding back for fear of how people might react. Taking them back to her room, she planned to show them something she had never shown anyone before. Haruma felt they weren't close enough for her to do this, and Akito told her not to force herself. Pulling the drawer open, she revealed her treasure. It was an entire collection of Yoren's Tale. Even though people saw them as children's books, she really loved them. She had both regular and collector's editions. For 10 years, she'd been deeply engrossed in Yoren's Tale. She often wrote fan letters to the author, Kanisawa. Haruma would stop her there. Didn't she say his manga was her favorite? But then she'd make it clear that Usaneka was her favorite, at least when it came to manga. He was okay with that. Yoren's Tale was a series that lifted her from the pits of despair when she needed it most. The image of Yoren standing against hardships inspired her to do her best. During times of struggle, she'd ask herself, what would Yoren do? And that gave her a positive attitude. It was a precious work that she loved so much. Yet, no one at home understood her. They said it was embarrassing for her to be reading kids' books. Her parents would even scold her. One day, they threw away all her books while she was away. Haruma felt her pain hearing such a sad story. She thought they were some loser parents. He urged Rinko and Akito to live a better life together as an otaku couple. Haruma even offered to watch the horror stuff with Akito, and he allowed Rinko to watch any other series that wasn't his. Before heading off to bed, Haruma asked him to seal the reconciliation with a hug. He pushed Rinko to Akito, and being so close to him, she was flush. With the case closed, Haruma went off to bed. Akito would hug Rinko tighter, asking to stay like this for just a bit longer. With Haruma gone, Rinko didn't see why he needed to keep pretending. Reaching his limit, Akito was blushing. He finally let her go and returned to his room. Watching an episode of Usaneko Club, Rinko felt bad for the character Memoru, who had taken an interest in someone. The more Memoru thought about this person, the less she could do things she was usually able to do. This was another episode that soothed Rinko's soul. Mimi's smile was more mischievous than usual. She then noticed someone peeking at her from Haruma's room, and this person resembled Mimi. Haruma then came in, introducing the little girl as his sister, Mao. He revealed that he had modeled Mimi after her. Mao would be surprised to see that Rinko had the whole collection of Magi Merm. She and Rinko immediately connected, and they'd start rambling about all the awesome things in the show. Refusing to let any of that rub off on him, Haruma took a call and left. Later on, Rinko browsed the internet, reading the relaxing effects of a hug. Seeing that it could heal and reduce stress, she figured that must have been why Akito held onto her back then. She was still losing her mind over it. Before Mao left, Rinko was happy to give one of her Magi merch to her. Mao's classmates didn't know older series, so she was happy that she got to talk to Rinko about the greatness of the Misaki sisters. After she bid them farewell, Haruma walked away, looking bothered, and Rinko seemed to notice. During dinner, Rinko brought his food, but he was so lost in work and said he'd eat later. She then left the food on the table. It was obvious to her that he'd been acting weird lately. The new manuscript he was working on was stressing him out. Earlier on, he heard how the Memoru episode, which aired, was a huge hit, so the crush arc in the manga that the episode was based on had been getting attention. His editor, Kaneko, suggested they continue that storyline, but Haruma had no plans for that. He wanted to work on something else. Kaneko freaked out, not wanting to hear the genius mangaka say that. And so, Haruma was having a hard time with this. He knew nothing about having a crush. He told Rinko about it, saying he didn't get what the big deal was. Personally, he had never had a crush, and basically saw it as a huge inconvenience. His assistants had gotten into fights over him before. Because of that, they couldn't finish their work. The only reason he hired Rinko was that she was already taken. To him, people with crushes needed to stop beating around the bush and just ask them out already. If they got dumped, they could move on. However, Rinko didn't think Memoru was that kind of girl. With Haruma in full focus for another night, Rinko stopped by Akito's place. She was more than welcome here. After all, she was his girlfriend. As they ate dinner, Akito mentioned that writer's block wasn't that rare. Writers and artists weren't gods, after all. Bringing lunch for Haruma the next day, Rinko saw that he hadn't even touched his previous meal. She asked if he wanted to eat together, but but he'd only let out a sigh. She still advised him to eat, even if it was just a little. Suddenly, Haruma yelled at her, asking her what her deal was. It was like she was his editor, his mom, or his girlfriend. Surprisingly, she yelled back, telling him that she was his disciple and chef's assistant. It was her duty to make sure he ate. Whatever needed to be said, she'd say it so that he could be healthy and write his manga. She then told him to eat. He said he wasn't hungry, so she told him to sleep, but he claimed he wasn't tired. And with that, she yelled at him to go take a bath. After Haruma was done soaking in the bathtub, Rinko would help blow dry his hair. It looked like he had calmed down a little, but she wanted him to go back to his energetic self. Wondering what to do, Rinko decided to give him a hug. He figured this was meant for couples and asked if she liked him. Rinko went, "I love you very much." However, it was a problem for Haruma when his assistants fell for him. But as his faithful follower, she thanked him for bringing Usaneko Club to life. She'd forever be grateful. Haruma then wondered if she liked him more than Akito. At that moment, a blizzard blew past as Akito made his appearance. He questioned what Rinko was doing, and Haruma immediately said his girlfriend was cheating on him. Dang, she's cooked. Realizing what she did, Rinko quickly apologized. Akito didn't mind. He knew he was the one she really loved. While trying to say it back, Rinko fell to her knees. Knowing it would be hard for her to say, Akito simply asked her to nod, as he asked if he was the only one she loved. She thought he was so amazing, and he gave off such boyfriend energy. Rinko nodded in approval, and he patted her head. With this, Akito made it clear that Rinko was obsessed with him, but Haruma would question why she hugged him. Akito told him it was to relieve stress. She had no ulterior motives. She was just wondering how she could help with his manuscript writing. After that, Akito asked Haruma how his progress was going, referring to him as Mr. Writer's Block. Pissed off, Haruma asked that they take this outside, and Akito happily accepted. The three of them would end up going for a walk. Akito told Haruma he needed it because it wasn't good for him to stay inside, hunched over his desk. For a moment, Haruma had to put aside any work that involved thinking. Rinko happily wanted to help him enjoy the walk, but Akito pulled her back, saying that the both of them were only here to chaperone. On the other hand, Haruma didn't appreciate the bright sunlight and cold air. He told himself he didn't have writer's block and could write whatever he wanted at any time. Wondering when the wind got so cold, he began taking in the scenery. Slowly, he could feel his brain unwinding. But even then, he still didn't understand how Memoru felt. Belonging to someone else sounded like the most annoying crap to him. He didn't see any reason to bother falling for someone. Rinko would then run up to him, handing him a drink. Recalling episode 43 of Usaneko Club, she started talking about it. A ginkgo leaf landed on her can, and it reminded her of Me from episode 112. While she kept talking about it, Haruma couldn't stop thinking about how cute she was. Before he could say anything, Akito came for Rinko, and they left together. Based on Haruma's whole life experience, the reason Rinko looked so cute to him was probably because she liked him after all. He believed girls got cuter when they were near the person they liked. But in Rinko's case, it was more likely that she was in love with his manga. But if she liked his manga, maybe she also liked him. To test his theory, if Rinko caught him looking at her, then turned around and smiled one more time, it meant she was totally in love with him. However, Rinko only turned to look at Akito. Haruma was losing his mind because she wouldn't turn back. It was then that he became aware of his own feelings. Slowly, Haruma's story began coming to life, like he was giving birth to a child. Heading over to a bench, he swiftly drafted the manuscript. Haruma finally understood what it meant to have a crush. Rinko praised him, saying he was a god. Then with Haruma's stomach rumbling, he wanted to go home and eat her cooking. On the way back, Rinko decided to head over to a store to shop for ingredients. The guys were left alone together, and Haruma asked Akito how long they'd been dating. Frankly, they didn't seem that close. Akito would remind him that he said having a crush was inconvenient. He advised Haruma not to try unless he was serious. Haruma kept prying about their love life, making Akito angry. Remembering that he told Akito not to break up because of him, Haruma took back those words. Rinko had no idea that some conflict was brewing. Haruma told Akito to let him have Rinko, or at least let him borrow her. If he was wrong about how he felt, he'd return her. He even wanted some credit for negotiating directly. He didn't want to cause a scandal and thought he could wait his turn. However, Akito made it clear that even without him around, Rinko would never be Haruma's girlfriend. This was because gods couldn't be romantic interests. So he advised Haruma not to do anything that would prevent Rinko from genuinely enjoying his stories. Rinko then returned, interrupting their moment, excited about all the good deals she got at the store. At Haruma's apartment, she noticed the shoes on the table and asked if he wore them in the house because he was originally from overseas. However, it was just what Haruma liked to do, and he had no particular reason for it. Although he was a blonde hottie, that's what he called himself, not me. He had lived in Japan since he was a kid. His parents were also Japanese. Rubbing his face against Rinko's, he told her how he enjoyed physical contact, thanks to his mom doing the same for him. Akito popped out, separating both of them. It was time for them to go home, but Haruma wanted Rinko to stay longer. To this, Akito warned him to stop butting into a couple's private life. Over at his place, Rinko thanked him for his help. Because of Akito pretending to be her boyfriend, she was able to continue as a chef's assistant. Akito told her it'd be difficult for him to keep up this act. He didn't think it would go on for this long. She'd been using him this whole time. But she realized he also had his personal life. Feeling bad about this, Rinko decided to set him free. She thanked him for keeping up the act all the while, and apologized for making him stick around this long for her sake. Going forward, she would keep a respectful distance as his neighbor. She started crying and talking about how he was so kind and always doting on her. She was really enjoying the lifestyle the three of them had, but it was all going to end, and that made her bawl her eyes out. Akito then asked for permission to do something a boyfriend would do. He embraced her and apologized for the way he worded things. Even though it would be difficult to keep up the act, that didn't mean he wanted it to end. What he really meant was that they needed to come up with a plan so their cover wouldn't be blown. For example, he proposed they'd go out for real. Shortly after, Rinko was enjoying a Ferris wheel ride with Akito. They were neighbors, but she felt like she was on an actual date. Akito considered this a real date himself. At that moment, he confessed that he liked her. He didn't just want to be neighbors, but to be her boyfriend for real. Rinko wasn't sure how to react. However, she liked him too, but always thought it wasn't right for her to fall for him. Just as they were about to kiss, Rinko brought herself back from that daydream. Yup, none of that was real. It was all a made-up memory to strengthen their fake dating strategy. Akito wrote this in such a short span of time. She thought he was really a god. Akito explained he was a writer of sorts, but didn't see himself as a god per se. Rinko insisted people who were capable of honing such imagery were indeed almighty gods to her. She couldn't even believe they were both part of the human species. Reading his profile, she noticed his birthday was only a day off from Kanizawa-sensei's. Their age and star sign were the same though, 28 years old and a Cancer. She thought it was so cool. The sign most compatible with Kanizawa's Cancer would be a Virgo. Because of that, Rinko wished she had been born in September. It wasn't like she considered Kanizawa in her dating pool. Rather, she had a hobby of looking into her OTP's compatibility. She had learned a lot about astrology and enjoyed reading about it. Rinko declared that Izumi Kanizawa was a god, so harboring impure intentions was sacrilege. In her room, she continued reading the made-up memories, and the more she read, the more she felt like the events actually happened. She wondered how Akito could write a light love story about them so nonchalantly. She tried to calm down, reminding herself that it was a work of fiction. Still, her dialogue and actions were so realistic. She wanted to read more and more. Later, at Haruma's place, he and Rinko were battling in a fighting game. Akito then told Haruma to relieve her of her chef's assistant duties on the weekends. Haruma refused, telling him that mangakas didn't get weekends off. Plus, he'd die if he was lonely, and he had the mentality of a poor lonely bunny. He demanded to be pampered more. Akito said Rinko was sad about this since they couldn't go on dates. Following the script, she mentioned that they used to go on dates before, and she wanted to go to the Ferris wheel again. With no other choice, Haruma agreed to give Rinko weekends off. The next morning, Akito was waiting for Rinko. As she stepped out, he stood speechless at her beauty. While walking together, she thought they didn't have to actually go on a date. Once they left home, they could have gone their separate ways. Akito figured it would be easier to memorize scenes if they experienced them firsthand. Still, it was too realistic. They'd head into the cinema, and that was where Rinko realized this was her first date ever. Whether this really counted or not, she wasn't sure. If they were only pretending as usual, then today's date was just an extension of that. She didn't know what to make of the situation. What kind of expression was she supposed to make when walking by Akito's side? Did they look like a couple to everyone else? These questions ran through her mind. Next, they went to a coffee shop. Akito then told her that they could go somewhere more casual next time. Rinko didn't think there'd be a next time though. It made her wonder if he'd been on dates like this before. As they visited more places, she wondered how many more weekends he'd give up for her sake. Even though this relationship would end someday, she thought Akito was too nice. In the evening, they enjoyed the view from atop the Ferris wheel. Rinko looked excited, staring at all the pretty lights. Then, she suddenly realized something she had never realized before. Akito mentioned there was something he'd been wanting to tell her for a while now. It felt a little late for him to say this, especially when they were pretending to be a couple and going on dates and all. With the way he was following the script, Rinko thought he'd actually play out the scene. But she'd be shocked when he just asked her if he could call her by her first name. He took her silence as a no and asked if it was because he wasn't her real boyfriend. Personally, he felt like he'd gotten closer to her. The words from the script played in Rinko's head. She was unable to differentiate her feelings and the feelings she had in Akito's story. Even though it was a script, it was just too similar to her true feelings. She'd start crying and he got worried. Given that they were neighbors, she didn't feel it was right to let him spoil her this much. But he wasn't just a neighbor to her. He was too nice, kind, reliable, and always worried about her. She felt at ease, but also nervous when they were together. Akito would be in for a shocker, as she asked if she could consider him a friend. He'd agree, and then gave her the earrings she was staring at earlier. Since they were friends now, she accepted it with a huge smile. Returned back to Harama's apartment, where he was on call with Kaneko. With Harama being able to write that heart-throbbing arc, Kaneko asked if he had developed a crush in real life. Apparently, Harama's motivation had dropped to zero because of it. Kaneko told him it was his duty to experience a pure and heart-wrenching crush and bring new stories to life. But Harama wanted nothing more than to hurry up and end it. However, Kaneko claimed his crush was a precious existence in his life, the muse that sparked inspiration within him, though he was supposedly her god. Desperate to have his limited flan, Harama went shopping for it, but sadly, he couldn't find any at the store, so he'd return home, flopping on his couch. He kept thinking about when Rinko and Akito would return. They seemed to be taking their time. Harama was tired of feeling this way. Just then, he heard Rinko's door open, and she called out to him. He went to her room, and she gave him the flan she bought as a gift for him. Harama was speechless. He dragged her closer and held her, saying he nearly died from loneliness. But getting an uneasy feeling, she ran back to her room. At that moment, Harama feared the worst. Did he just make Rinko hate him? Rinko finally realized she liked Akito, but she was certain if she told him, everything would change. Their current lifestyle only worked because there was no romance involved. In front of Harama, she had to pretend they were dating, and when she was with Akito, she had to hide her true feelings. Would she really be able to perform such a complicated role? Meanwhile, Harama was sulking on the couch, wondering if he made Rinko hate him. She then rang the bell, asking if she could bring in breakfast. Inviting her in, she quickly noticed that he wasn't looking too well, but he just told her that he pulled an all-nighter. Asked her what he did last time. Rinko figured he just needed to recharge. She wasn't mad at all. Harama asked if she liked him, and she replied, "Yes, I adore you." That's when Akito would enter the room, making it clear to Harama that it was his manga she liked. Turning to Rinko, he told her not to worry about his dinner tonight, because he already made plans to go out drinking with a friend. When Akito was about to leave, he noticed Rinko was looking a little down. She reminded herself that she needed to be in girlfriend mode since Harama was still here, but wondered whether it was okay if her answer was weighed by her affection for Akito. She told him she'd miss him, and moved by her words, he decided to rest his forehead against hers, and promised to keep in touch and come home early. He then kissed her on the forehead and take his leave. Following that, Rinko and Harama spent their time playing video games. He noticed that she seemed bothered, so he lent an ear. She wondered if it was normal for friends to use heart or kissy emojis. Harama suspected she peeked at Akito's phone and was now bothered about him going out with another girl. He'd offer himself as a replacement if Akito dumped her, but he didn't expect to suddenly see her crying. He got flustered by her tears and assured her that everything would be alright. But Rinko believed Akito was the kind of person who could hold hands with friends and even kiss them. Not knowing what to say, Harama hugged her so that she couldn't see his face, and told her to pretend that he was Akito and say what she wanted to say to him. Rinko confessed her feelings for Akito, though she wished she could tell him in person. This frustrated Harama. Unable to hold back his feelings, he also said he liked her and proceeded to kiss her? Reasoning that Akito might be out with another girl, he told Rinko to cheat on him. She would scream, and he realized he messed up again. Her first kiss was stolen, all because of a supposed slip-up. Harama felt like the worst as she cried, but he apologized, hoping she wouldn't hate him. She, of course, couldn't hate her god. She loved both him and his manga forever. After that, the two of them stepped out for a bit. Surprisingly, they'd head to the same bar where Akito was with another lady. Rinko thought this girl was the Miki she saw on Akito's phone. The girl introduced herself as Imoto and said she was Akito's girlfriend. Akito tried to explain they were just acquaintances, but Rinko already accepted it and said they looked like a lovely couple. She didn't want to keep up with the pretense in front of Akito's actual girlfriend, and told Imoto that he was just a neighbor and that Harama was her boyfriend. Harama would use this moment to tease Akito, but Akito wouldn't let that slide. When Rinko mistakenly referred to Imoto as Miki, Imoto then called the man over the counter. It turned out that Miki was the owner of the place. Once they cleared up the misunderstanding, Rinko apologized for looking at Akito's phone, and they'd soon learn Imoto was just a fellow writer friend of Akito's. Akito, along with Rinko and Harama, went to another table. Rinko apologized again for all the trouble, and while on the topic of apologies, Harama apologized for kissing her. With Rinko confirming that happened, Akito tried to calm the rage he felt. He then took the blame for leaving her with Harama in the first place. They'd both start arguing over who was wrong, and Harama slammed the table, yelling that it was all his fault. On the way back, Rinko felt all warm and fuzzy because she drank too much. But those long-held anxieties were gone, and she felt at ease. Turning to Akito and Harama, she wished the three of them could be together forever and ever. Back at their apartment, Harama joined Akito for a smoke outside. Akito pointed out that Rinko cherished the times that the three of them spent together. He did as well, and was sure Harama felt the same to a certain extent. So, he told Harama to stop meddling in things like he didn't care. Still, it made Akito shudder over how Rinko didn't see Harama as a man. No matter what they did to Rinko, a god was romantically out of the picture. When Akito got back inside, she woke up from her nap, telling him that she wanted them to be together forever. She liked it better when it was the three of them together and not just two. After all, when it was her and Akito alone, her heart wouldn't stop pounding. She wondered why he still pretended to be her boyfriend when it was just the two of them. It was only needed if Harama was there. If she fell in love with him for real, she wasn't so sure how it would turn out. Placing his hand on hers, Akito said it didn't bother him. He wanted to make her heart flutter and make her fall for him because he really liked it. Was this real? She was certain this had to be a dream about her deepest desires. In that case, she told him that a kiss would make her believe him. Akito thought it was wrong of him to tie her down by pretending to be her boyfriend, but he couldn't care less about that because he didn't want to give her away to anyone. Rinko wanted this moment to be believable. Just as Akito was about to kiss her, he pulled back, feeling it wasn't right. It wasn't that he was teasing her. He just didn't want her to think this was because of the alcohol. So he decided to tell her again when he woke up. She'd then fall asleep in his arms. Dang, all this back and forth about Harama's the one who got the first kiss. Man, I can't believe he's like, yeah, just cheat on him. Who do you support her being with, Akito or Harama? Let me know. Subscribe to keep up with next week's part, but for now, watch this next video. It's me, Comfy T. I'll see you all in the next one.